Hello guys, my name is Sparkfinger and welcome to this video explaining the latest controversy involving a text online game AI Dungeon. First of all, let's explain what is AI Dungeon. AI Dungeon is a text video game. You have to be connected to the internet because it's an artificial intelligence game. Somewhere on the server is a really powerful artificial intelligence that will write a story for you based on inputs that you give it. Usually those stories are short, they are reminiscent of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. Basically, the AI can serve you as a dungeon master, telling you what you can and cannot do in your story and what exactly is happening. But also you can control the AI and, lead it in a direction in whichever way you want it to go, This AI tool, this AI text video game can help you create a story that you will enjoy, basically. It delivers an unbelievable experience as it reacts to your input, and it takes you on an incredible adventure with twists and turns like you have never experienced before. Now, it used to be fun here back in the day. And here, let's get to controversy. Controversy on April 27th, 2021. Let's first read this post and then I will explain different positions from the society as well as developers. Update to our community. Yesterday we released a test system to prevent the generation of certain sexual content that violates our policy, specifically the content that may involve depictions or descriptions of minors, for which we have zero tolerance. On the AI Dungeon platform, we did not communicate this test to the community in advance, which created an environment where users and other members of our large community, including platform moderators, were caught off guard. Because of this, some misinformation has spread across Discord, Reddit, and other parts of the AI Dungeon community. As a result, it became difficult to hold the conversations we want to have about what type of content is permitted on AI Dungeon. From the beginning of AI Dungeon, we have always loved the freedom and creativity that AI-powered gaming enables. It lets users exercise their imaginations, creating unique experiences and stories that have never existed before. We love seeing the amazing things our users create. We remain true to the principles upon which Latitude was founded, which include promoting freedom of thought and expression through our advanced AI platform. At the same time, we have zero tolerance for sexual content involving minors. We are a small company and committed to creative and thriving community. Allowing such content promotes harm to minors, is inconsistent with our company's values, and could impact our ability to provide AI Dungeon in the future. The changes we've been making are also consistent with OpenAI's terms of service, which prohibit the display of harmful content, even if an end user specifically asks for such content. We recognize that we can and will take additional steps to meet this standard. While this test has largely only prevented the AI from generating sexual content involving minors, because of technical limitations, it has sometimes prevented the generation of content it wasn't intended to. We know that our initial test was not perfect, and we also understand that this can be frustrating. As a result, we are taking the following steps to address the issues that have been brought to our attention. Continuously improve the AI based on feedback to be both fun and welcoming. Provide a way for users to report false positives so that we can limit the impact on other types of content. Inform moderators in advance when platform changes are being implemented. In addition to safeguarding freedom of expression, every member of the Latitude team works tirelessly to create a welcoming community environment. The steps that we have outlined above represent our best intentions and efforts at this time to maintain the platform in a way that is welcoming for the largest audience possible. We have shared responses to some questions you may have at the end of this post. But if you have any other feedback or questions, please reach out to us at support@aidungeon.io. Questions and answers. What changes did you make to AI Dungeon? We are in the process of implementing technical safeguards and policies to support our community guidelines prohibiting sexual content involving minors in AI Dungeon. Additionally, we are updating our community guidelines and policies to clarify prohibited types of user activity. Why did you make this change? As a technology company, we believe in an open and creative platform that has a positive impact on the world. Explicit content involving descriptions or depictions of minors is inconsistent with this value, and we firmly oppose any content that may promote the sexual exploitation of minors. We have also received feedback from OpenAI, which asked us to implement changes. How will it affect my gameplay? for the vast majority of players it shouldn't. It will only affect your gameplay if you pursue these kind of inappropriate gameplay experiences. No system is perfect, and this is still a work in progress, and we are adding systems to let you report if you think a mistake has been made in flagging content from your game. Conversely, if you think the system has not flagged content it should, please report that using our pre-existing flag button in the toolbar above the input box. What kind of content are you preventing? The test is focused on preventing the use of AI Dungeon to create child sexual abuse material. That means content that is sexual or suggestive involving minors, child sexual abuse material, imagery, fantasy content like loli that depicts, encourages, or promotes the sexualization of minors or those who appear to be minors, or child sexual exploitation. Are you preventing all sexual content or swearing? AI Dungeon will continue to support other not safe for work content, including consensual adult content, violence, and profanity. Is Latitude reading my unpublished stories? We built an automated system that depicts inappropriate content. Latitude reviews content flagged by the model for the purpose of improving the model, to enforce our policies, and to comply with law. How do you plan to prevent future tests and changes from disproportionately impacting underrepresented users? As a diverse team, many of us had personal experiences with feature like reporting being misused against marginalized groups to which we belong. We are aware of the possible misuse of any reporting feature on our platform, especially against undeserved and marginalized groups such as women, LGBTQ individuals, and disabled people. And we will be taking reports seriously on contextual basis. Author, Latitude team. Now that we explained what AI Dungeon is, and we read through the update to our community post, I'm going to explain the controversy itself. Basically, a few weeks ago, a group from 4chan decided to have fun at the expense of AI Dungeon. They came to the game and, well, started posting very specific scenarios that involved really inappropriate stuff. So, that's where they used to post the scenarios, in the Explore tab, which is temporarily unavailable. It was removed a few weeks ago, so now we can only really have featured scenarios, something that was personally approved by AI Dungeon developers. Basically, these groups' plan was very simple. One of those guys would write a rather inappropriate scenario. Scenario is something that you can use to start your new story. Something involving, well, very inappropriate things such as family members or children or animals or anything really disturbing. And they, of course, tried to make it funny and hilarious, and a lot of people enjoyed it, but the majority of AI Dungeons society and community disagreed with it. And a lot of people reported the supposed botting, which it wasn't. It was just a group flash mob. A lot of people registered on the site and upvoted those really inappropriate scenarios. Those are not inappropriate, those are featured. And because of that, Latitude decided to temporarily remove the Explore tab. A few weeks later, this comes out. AI Dungeon developers, Latitude, implemented a system in the AI Dungeon engine that allows AI Dungeon to detect questionable content, something that specifically involves minors. Basically, not safe for work content. I'm not going to be using overly sharp terms. And a lot of people reported that, well, it was flagging the wrong kind of content. No system is perfect, they say. Basically, it's very true. AI Dungeon developers, Latitude, they are not the people who developed the open AI on which AI Dungeon is based. They are very smart guys, but from what I understand, they are not quite capable of implementing an auto-moderation thing. Auto-moderation feature, which would automatically remove or stop scenarios, stop the wrong kind of scenarios from happening. And because of that, some people experienced a situation in which their scenario was soft-locked and they had to report to AI Dungeon developers and resolve the situation, even though it wasn't anything involving, I don't know, the wrong kind of stuff, you know? Inevitably, I have to agree, even if it's private, it's not quite right to you know, involve anything like this in your stories. I mean, I really understand both sides. And I understand the developers and the community, which currently happens to be united all together. People who love really inappropriate kind of stuff with people who are just rooting for, you know, freedom from censorship. So yes, this is point number one. The feature, the auto moderation system. And it happened because people from 4chan decided to troll AI Dungeon a little bit. And here's another, the biggest part of the controversy. Is Latitude reading my unpublished adventures? We built an automated system that detects inappropriate content. Latitude reviews content flagged by the model for the purposes of improving the model, to enforce our policies and to comply with law. Basically what they're saying, if the model, if the engine feature is going to detect anything in your scenario, then Latitude workers, moderators, or developers themselves are going to read your story that you played, and they review it and try to improve the model, you know, or enforce their policies, which obviously demand that, well, we explained it in the first part. I really can't repeat the same word too many times. And comply with law, yes. Of course, there isn't really a law that prevents people from playing not safe for work content in a text game, because, you know, that would be quite similar to thought crimes, but this is a speech for another time. So yes, there's 2 points, the broken auto moderation system that flags all sorts of wrong stuff, and the fact that Latitude is now going to be reading unpublished personal private adventures, private scenarios and stories that people wrote on their own. So now that I explained 2 sides, let's go in depth and explain exactly what's happening. This is Reddit of the AI Dungeon game. And here is the post, update to our community. And here we're going to read a couple of comments. I kinda thought everyone was blowing this out of proportion, but my superhero story, I cannot even get a response for rescuing a child. WTF. Basically, it's a person that is really disappointed with the auto moderation system, which locks you out of playing the game temporarily if there is anything that involves children. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be sexual. We'll go through it further. There is not just children, but there is also broken stuff like this. You can read it yourself if you really want. People are rooting for free speech, we'll get to it. People are quitting, not very good. Here people are making jokes about how you cannot actually ride horses, because supposedly the auto moderation system detects it and considers this the wrong kind of inappropriate content. You can really come here and read it on your own, unless you're watching this video in the distant future. Yes, people are disappointed that the feature wasn't implemented properly, and a lot of people are really rooting for the supposed freedom of speech. They really don't want AI Dungeon developers reading anything, any of the special stories that AI helps them generate. I mean, those stories are pretty great. They're a lot like reading a book exactly that you wanted to read, you know? Literature material, I can tell you. It can be quite fun. And yes, there is a controversy. Everyone gets called the P word. I'm not gonna say this word. A lot of AI Dungeon users and players were labeled as P word, and a lot of people are disappointed with this. Let's briefly go through gaming, Circle Jerk, Reddit, because this Reddit, there are also trolls and fun guys in here that are memeing on AI Dungeon. We can see here they're making fun of people protesting against the supposed censorship, and they're making fun of AI Dungeon players themselves. I couldn't help myself but laugh at a lot of these memes, but of course, I'm not really on the side of this particular Reddit. I have to say that I am on the side of AI Dungeon community. Inevitably, I think that the developers themselves have to address the community once again and, you know, present them with a different post where they will, I don't know, help people calm down, because supposedly I believe in the future for AI Dungeon. I believe that we can move on from this. Yes, people have reacted so strongly that the auto moderator suggests that you don't threaten anyone or promote suicide. Inevitably, it's been quite chaotic, although albeit quite funny at the same time. People were really disappointed with the chaos that emerged. And yes, once again, to reiterate, AI Dungeon introduced a slightly dysfunctional auto-moderation system and declared that they will now be reading unpublished adventures, unpublished stories that people play through. I mean, realistically speaking, I'm pretty sure that the developers were able to read it before, but now they are just being open with it. So honestly, if you're playing something inappropriate, beware of that. I mean, obviously, you don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, nothing of this is against. Literally nothing that you do in AI Dungeon is against any law of any country, because it's literally just a text game. You cannot go to jail for writing something in a text file. You cannot go to jail for thinking something. And you cannot go to jail for playing inappropriate stuff in AI Dungeon. And trust me, there is so much more inappropriate stuff than this, because in this game there is not safe for work content that involves something that's, well, honestly, would be significantly more painful in real life than child abuse stuff, such as genocide, terrorism, and things like that. Because AI Dungeon is really a realistic game in many ways. I mean, it's not perfect, but it can create very realistic scenarios. Once again, to reiterate, there are two sides to the argument. There are the developers who really want to, improve the reputation of their game. And there are the community, which is currently just happens to be united. Although not everyone agrees with everyone else. And they think that Latitude, the developers, need to release another post and explain themselves. And I'm very much suggesting that Latitude does release another post. I'm asking for that one more post where AI Dungeon explains themselves and addresses the whole situation. Well, now that I explained everything, I can conclude. It's been Sparkfinger signing out. Bye for now.